The Maelstrom Hunter by Crimson QB Sage, Chapter 22, Dance Dance Infiltration, with Roshi and Kurosutsu. Roshi, Kurosutsu said, "It's been a while, hasn't it, Kuro?" Roshi asked with a sigh. I'm sorry about everything, Roshi, Kurosutsu said. There's nothing to be forgiven for, Kuro," Roshi stated. "I got over it a long time ago, but," Kurosutsu started. "But nothing. I've moved on. You should as well," Roshi stated before starting to walk away. "There's something else," Kurosutsu said, grabbing Roshi's arm. "You're in danger." "Yeah, I know. I've already encountered an Akatsuki member here," Roshi said. "The Akatsuki? That's not what I'm talking about," Kurosutsu stated. "Gramps has plans to kidnap you sometime during the tournament." "What? Gramps Onuki?" Roshi questioned. "Why would you tell me this?" "Because I saw how happy you were with that white-haired girl. I want my best friend to be happy with his life," Kurosutsu said, a smile gracing her face. "Thanks, Kuro," Roshi said as Kurosutsu enveloped him in a friendly hug. With John and Pyrrha. "What's the matter, Pyrrha?" John asked, said blind, having been led to one of the outdoor balconies by Pyrrha. "I just want to talk," Pyrrha said shyly as she twirled her hair in her hand. "Well, you look really nice," John said. "Thank you," Pyrrha said, a blush prominent on her face. "You okay?" John asked. "Well, I wanted to tell you something," Pyrrha stated. "You can tell me anything," John said. Pyrrha said nothing as she went up to John and gave him a kiss. John's eyes widened slightly before he melted into the kiss, embracing the romantic gesture. When the kiss broke, the two smiled as they held the other in their arms. "I really like you," Pyrrha stated. "I like you too," John said. Unbeknownst to the new couple, Naruto, Ruby, and a cloaked man watched on with satisfaction. Naruto Ruby turned to the cloaked man, who gave a thumbs up before disappearing in a crimson flash. Begin Academy Ballroom. Yang leaned on a handrail and overlooked the festivities from a second tier as Ruby and Naruto approached, both leaning on the rails as well. "You know, I think we really needed this," Yang stated. Blake and Sun were slowly dancing. Ren and Nora appeared to be waltzing. Han and Fu were doing the tango, and Penny appeared to be doing the robot alongside two Atlas soldiers. "Yeah, and you did a great job playing it too," Ruby said. "Aw, thanks," Yang said, reaching over to Ruby and crushing her in a one-arm hug as said red-haired girl flailed frantically. "It wasn't all me, though. Reese and Team Archfiend did a lot, too." Ruby stopped, struggling to look down at Weiss. Roshi soon approached her, extending his hand out to her in a gentlemanlike way, to which she accepted with a smile before the two started slow dancing. "Tomorrow it's back to work," Yang said. "I'm sure we can handle whatever gets thrown at us," Naruto stated. "Except for that," Ruby said amidst the fatal laughter and giggles below. Walking up to Pyrrha was John, who wore a white dress with a blue ribbon. "Why is Flaky wearing a dress?" Yang asked. "A gentleman's bet," Naruto said. "John," Pyrrha questioned. "A gentleman's bet is a gentleman's bet," John stated. "Is that what this was about?" Pyrrha asked. "Yeah, hey, an arc never goes back on his word," John said, extending his hand to Pyrrha. "Now, do you want to stand there and laugh at me, or do you want to dance?" "I would love to dance," Pyrrha said, offering her own hand. John pulled her to him and swept her away. "Oh, Ren, this is happening!" Nora exclaimed, flailing excitedly. "Wait, what is happening?" Bren asked. He got no response as Nora grabbed him and dragged him out onto the dance floor with Pyrrha and John. What happened next could be described as a well-choreographed, brief, synchronized dance. After the dance ended, culminating in John spinning Pyrrha, Naruto, Han, and Roshi looking at each other as if reading each other's minds and nodded in sync. "I had no idea you were a dancer," Pyrrha said. "Yeah, well, these things tend to happen when you grow up with seven sisters," John stated, dipping Pyrrha and then spitting her away. "Are you guys thinking what I'm thinking?" Naruto asked as he met up with Han and Roshi. "I agree. They called us out. We have to answer them with one of our own," Han stated. "Let's do this," Roshi said. The three shared a nod before heading into the stage. Henj no Jutsu. The trio called out, their forms being covered in veil of smoke. When the smoke cleared, the three Jinchuriki were no longer there. In their place were three girls. Play Caramel Dancing by Caramel. Where Roshi once stood was a brown-eyed girl with brown hair held in high ponytails, wearing a black and red short-sleeved shirt, gray skirt, a red belt, and black short shorts. She was giving off a salute with her left hand. Where Naruto once stood was a blue-eyed girl with blonde hair wearing what appeared to be a white and blue school uniform with a red scarf. Her right wrist was held up. And lastly, where Han once stood was a purple-eyed girl with lavender hair wearing a pink sleeveless shirt with a black collar with yellow around the edges. pink sleeves, a purple skirt, a white and orange belt, and white stockings. She had her hands on her hips. The next few moments were a blur, effectively scaring a few students. As Naruto, Roshi, and Han danced, their dates had all face palmed at the same time. By the end of the dance, many of the students, including the three involved with said dance, had their memory of this dance removed from their minds reflexively, so none recalled what happened in the past 3 minutes, but if one were to check the security camera footage of that night, they would find something like this. It appears all the dancers have partners, Emerald said. How long do I have? Cinder asked. You should probably be home by midnight to be safe, Mercury stated. Outside the Beacon Academy ballroom. I'll keep my eye on the clock, Cinder said before taking off. Ruby and Naruto, having made their way outside, watched the figures running along the rooftops. The two shared a look, followed by a nod before taking off in pursuit. Cross-Continental Transmit Tower. Outside the Cross-Continental Transmit Tower, Cinder, who was dressed as a cat burglar, stealthily approached an armed guard. She knife-handed the back of his head and rendering him unconscious with a stunned grin on his face. She dragged him behind some bushes before approaching the entrance to the building. She looked behind her to see if she was being followed, her suspicions being confirmed as she saw Naruto rushing towards her. Damn it, Emerald, Mercury, Plan B, Cinder exclaimed into her earpiece. On our way, Emerald said, Cinder, armed with two knife-like blades as she produced from flash forging them from fire dust, charged at Naruto. Said blonde-haired fox Faunus pulled up his right sleeve, revealing an intricate seal. He channeled chakra through the seal, and his tanto appeared in a puff of smoke, causing Cinder's eyes to widen. Are you an Uzumaki? Cinder asked as their blades clashed. Where did you hear that name? Naruto asked with narrowed eyes. So you are one, Cinder questioned, pulling back and channeling fire dust through the two blades and shooting said projectiles at Naruto in a slash-like manner. Sujinchu, Naruto exclaimed, shouting out a watered-down version of the rather colorated technique, enough so that the fiery projectile were evaporated. With Ruby approached the CCT tower, her eyes widening as she saw her boyfriend fighting the mysterious assailant. She pulled out her scroll, dialing for her weapon locker, which crashed into the courtyard and opened to reveal Crescent Rose. Ruby ran up to her weapon locker, retrieved her sniper scythe from the crashed pod. After doing so, she turned to the fight just ahead of her, only for her path to be blocked by two familiar yet mysterious people. One had teal hair and a teal mask, while the other had gray hair and a gray mask. Your fight is with us, Mercury said, as he and Emerald charged at Ruby. With Naruto, Fuiton Kasekiri no Jutsu, Naruto called out after dodging another fireball and channeling chakra through his tanto and sending it out in a slash-like motion. Cinder jumped up to avoid the attack, her two blades merging together to form a bow. With a mental command, she formed her three primed arrows and shot them at Naruto. Naruto charged forward to dodge the attacks. As Cinder landed back on the ground, her bow morphed back into two blades to block the blonde fox's tanto. She strafed backwards and shot another volley of fireballs at Naruto, said Blonde, dodging the fiery projectiles. By the time he recovered, she was already halfway through the doors to the CCT tower. Naruto looked behind him to see Ruby fighting against the masked Emerald and Mercury, but his concern was dismissed when she gave him a nod of her head. One that said, I got this. Naruto nodded his head back before heading off into the CCT tower. He arrived just in time to see Cinder behind the elevator doors as it began its ascent. Naruto then reached out the main doors and began channeling chakra to his feet and ran up the massive building walls. With Ruby dodged the slash from Emerald's weapons and pointed her Crescent Rose backwards and fired off a round, giving her the momentum to charge at Emerald. Said teal-haired girl strafed back as Mercury took her place, firing off a shotgun shell from his greaves. With a kick, Ruby fired off another round, changing the direction she was launched as she landed on her feet. She used Crescent Rose to block another strike from Emerald's weapons and firing off a sniper shell, sending the red-haired girl back. Before Emerald could charge at Ruby, she fell over on one knee, violently coughing as the same black marks as before started appearing on her body. Damn it, why does this have to happen now? Mercury exclaimed, quickly grabbing the form of Emerald and taking off to parts unknown. Ruby was about to take off after them when a resonating boom was heard from the tower. Turning to the tower, her eyes widened before she rushed to the tower's main entrance. "What is going on here?" a familiar voice yelled. Turned to the source of the exclamation, Ruby saw Ironwood running towards her. "There are these masked people that are attacking the tower," Ruby exclaimed. Naruto's up there facing one of the attackers. Ironwood's eyes widened before he began running towards the main entrance, Ruby shortly following after. With Cinder inside the building, the elevator doors opened up to show Cinder examining a scroll. The two guards that were in the elevator were now knocked out by the masked woman. "Oh, that's handy," Cinder stated, pocketing the scroll and walking out of the elevator and towards the control console nearby. "It appears that one of the party guests is close to your position," a familiar voice said. "Which one, Madara?" Cinder asked. "Ironwood," Madara stated. "I trust that you are finished with your mission." "Just about," Cinder said. A random code appearing on a computer screen was shown to change into a queen chess piece. As she started walking away, the window nearest the elevator was smashed open. Standing in front of the smashed window was Naruto, who was holding his tanto in his right hand and one of his pistols in his left. "You know, it's not a masquerade party, so why don't you just put down your weapons and—" Naruto said. He was interrupted when Cinder produced the container of ice dust and sent shards of ice flying at Naruto. Said Blonde Fox rolled under the icicles and charged forward, firing off condensed chakra at Cinder, who blocked the attacks with dust shields. Cinder then produced another dust container, this one having a red glow to it, and shot out several small fireballs at Naruto. As Naruto recovered from the projectiles, Cinder dashed forward and with a chop to the neck, Naruto was knocked out. As he dropped his tanto and pistol, the doors to the elevator opened up, revealing Ironwood and Ruby. Before they could step even 3 feet into the room, Cinder launched a single large fireball to the duo. Ironwood and Ruby rolled out of the way to avoid the fiery projectile. By the time they recovered, Cinder and Naruto were gone, the only sign of their presence being Naruto's pistol and tanto. Ruby rushed to the shattered window and desperately looked around for any sign of Naruto, but found none. "They're gone," Ruby exclaimed frantically. She had good reason to as well. Naruto had been kidnapped. Omaka, how it could have happened. Dance off. Team Archfiend and Team Juniper stared each other down with narrowed eyes. The Daft Punk DJs, along with the other students, watched the event unfold. "It's time to end this once and for all," Naruto stated. "I agree," John said. "With the dance off," Naruto and John exclaimed at the same time. "Hit it," Naruto exclaimed, pointing at the DJ who spun a record in his hand. Before playing said record, the two then danced to a jazz beat. Halfway through the song, Naruto and John jumped back, Roshi and Nora taking their places. The jazz beat was transitioned into a more hip-hop beat as the two danced off. Around 20 seconds later, Han and Red took their places, Yang appearing near Han with a fiddle in her hands, somehow playing it extremely well despite it being her first time ever touching the instrument. "Wait, where did you get the fiddle?" Weiss questioned him. "Mallet space," Yang exclaimed. Han soon finished his short dance, motioning to the DJ to change the beat. Students were crowded around the DJ booth, the entire group trying to figure out which beat to choose next. Following Han and Ren, Fu and Pira were up next, dancing to a Russian beat. After their dance was finished, Roshi and Nora went up again, dancing to a more game-like beat. By the time they were finished, Naruto and John went up again, both having discarded their suit jackets as they danced to a dubstep beat. With Professor Oobleck, Oobleck sat at the edge of his bed, bags under his eyes as he sighed. The effects of his coffee-induced energy have worn off as he prepared to sleep, only he couldn't. Why? Because there's a giant block of text in front of him. It said, "You may not rest now. There's a dance off nearby." Beacon Academy ballroom. The dance escalated to a point that everybody else started joining in until Naruto threw down a smoke pellet. When the smoke cleared, John was posing wearing a white dress. He then started to do a dance to ballet music. He then started flapping his hands up and down, flying off the ground slightly, but then the magic stopped, causing John to fall face first into the ground, still wearing a dress. Nobody said anything as silence permeated the area. "We won. You guys all saw that, right?" Roshi asked. End of chapter 22. The Maelstrom Hunter by Crimson QB Sage. Chapter 23. Field Trip. Ospin's office the next day. "They were here, Ospin. They were here, and they kidnapped one of your students," Ironwood exclaimed, raising his voice at the last part and angrily slamming his fist against Ospin's desk. "We're very much aware of that. Thank you, James," Glinda said. "Fantastic. You're aware. Now are we going to do something about it, or should we just stay the course and continue to ignore what's right in front of us?" Ironwood asked. Before the conversation could continue, an alert sound played, signifying that someone had arrived on the elevator. "Come in," Ospin said. Shortly after, Ruby stepped out and into the room, her eyes slightly puffy and red. Sorry it took so long. Someone accidentally hit all the buttons on the elevator on the way up here. It wasn't me, Ruby said. Thank you for coming, Ruby. How are you feeling? Osmond asked. Only a few days ago did I get a boyfriend. Now he's been kidnapped. How do you think I'm doing? Ruby asked rhetorically. The three other occupants of the room looked down and stayed silent. Ruby, I feel it's appropriate to let you know that what you did last night was exactly what being a huntress is all about. You recognized the threat, you took action, and you did the very best you could. Mark my words, you will find and save him, Ironwood stated. Thank you, sir, Ruby said. Now, the general here is already informed of most of the events that transpired last night, but now that you rested, we were wondering if you have anything to add, Osmond asked. Was anyone else with her? Did she look as familiar to you at all? Glinda asked. There were two other people with her. They all were wearing masks, and they never said anything to me directly, but I know that one of them was a teal-haired girl, another was a gray-haired guy. Her clothing lit up when she attacked, though, Ruby stated. Save for the other two, that sounds like the woman I fought the night we met, Ruby, Glinda stated. Embedding dust into clothing is an age-old technique. It could have been anyone, Arnwood said. Wait, you think that this girl is connected to Torchwork and the White Fang? Ruby questioned. It's plausible, but we still lack the required evidence that links the two together, Osmond stated. Actually, I think I remember one of them saying something about a hideout or something in the southeast, just outside the kingdom, Ruby stated. Interesting, Osmond said. I thought you said the intruders never, Glinda started. Thank you for your cooperation, Ruby. Why don't you go and spend some time with your team? You have a big day ahead of you, Osmond stated. Anytime, Ruby said before leaving. And Miss Rose, please try and be discreet about this matter, Osmond said. Yes, sir, Ruby said. Team Ruby dorm room. Ruby sighed as she got to her dorm room doorway. As she opened the door, Ruby saw Yang, Blake, and Weiss inside. The three zoomed over to her. What happened? Yang asked. Naruto got kidnapped last night, Ruby said. What? Was the collective cry of the room's three occupants. Osmond's office. Well, there we have it. We send as many troops as we can into the southeast, find out what's going on, and eradicate any forces that stand in our way, Arnwood stated. Why must your answer to everything involve a triumphant display of military bravado? You treat every situation like a contest of measuring, Glinda stated. Glinda, Osmond said. Well, he does, Glinda stated. She's right. As much as I too would love to end this situation once and for all, we must remember that this way may be beyond veil, beyond beacon, and if this truly is part of some master plan for which we know not the final move, we mustn't be so bold, nor we risk the spread of panic, Osmond stated. I have served you faithfully for years, but if you mean to tell me that your plan is to hold the defenses and wait, Ironwood said, it is not. You are General James, so tell me, when you prepare to go to war, which do you send first, the flag bearers or the scouts? Osmond questioned. You send the spies first, a new voice standing in the doorway was the three remaining members of Team Archfiend. The voice appeared to be coming from Roshi. And who exactly are you three? Ironwood asked. These are Han Irukamu, Roshi Yamasaruroku, and Fu Toruko, the three teammates of Naruto Uzumaki, Osmond stated. We can find him, Han said. And how are you so certain about that? Ironwood questioned, skeptical of the accusation. All four of us are connected in a special way, Fu stated. Give us a week and we'll find Naruto and the White Fang, Roshi said. That's a pretty big claim, Ironwood said. I have faith that they'll be able to, Osmond said. All right, your first mission as huntsman will be to find and save your teammate. You'll head out to the southeast quadrant after ceremony is finished. Hi, the three Jinchuriki chorused with Team Ruby. That was a risky move, Weiss said. No, I think you handled it well, Blake stated. I hope so, Ruby said. I'm sure everything will be alright, Ruby. Oh, I know what will cheer you up, Yang said, producing a cylindrical package the length of her forearm. What's that? Ruby asked. I don't know yet. Dad sent it to us, and I thought we could open it together, Yang stated. Oh, something from home, Ruby exclaimed, zooming over to Yang and wrapping herself around Yang, trying to take the cylinder from her. The package opened, and another cylinder, hairy and black, fell onto the floor and started to shake. The object suddenly transformed into a corgi. Team Ruby leaned in, staring at it. The animal barked twice, while Weiss and Blake continued to react with great shock. Ruby and Yang reacted excitedly, with Ruby jumping in the air. Swat! Ruby exclaimed. He sent a dog? Blake questioned him. In the mail? Weiss added. Oh, he does stuff like this all the time, Yang exclaimed. Blake disappeared to show now to be on Ruby's bunk. Your father or your dog? Blake asked. Are you telling me that this mangy, bloody mutt is gonna with us? Oh yes, he is. Oh, isn't he adorable? Weiss exclaimed, her speech going from disgust to adorable. Please keep him away from my belongings, Blake stated. Well, will all first year students please report to the amphitheater? Glinda said over the intercom. Well, we can't exactly leave him here while we're gone for the week, Weiss stated. Ruby placed White down and he walked over to Blake still on the top bunk and barked. Look, there's a letter, Yang said as Swire arrived in front of said girl. Dear girls, I've got to leave the island for a few days, so I'm sending Swire today for you to take care of. Enclosed is all the food you should need. Love you both, Tai Yang. Dozens of cans of dog food fell out of the small package, piling up around Swire. What are you supposed to do with all that? Weiss questioned. A can opener fell from the package, bouncing off Swice's head. Well, that settles it. Come on, girls. So I will be here when we get back, Yang said. Oh, I'll miss you so much. We're going to be best friends. I can't wait to see you. I can't believe how cute you are, Weiss said, her speech deteriorating into incomprehensible baby talk. Ruby stared at Swipe for a moment before smiling sneakily. Being Academy Amphitheater, Ruby was wearing a large backpack as she entered the amphitheater with other students. She then placed it down next to other students' luggage before rejoining her team, who were standing in front of Team Juniper. She looked around and frowned when she didn't see the three members of Team Archfiend. Quiet, please. Professor Ospin would like to share a few words before we begin, Glinda said. Today we stand together, united. Mistral, Atlas, Vacuole, Veil, the four kingdoms of Remnant on this day, nearly 80 years ago, the largest war in recorded history came to an end. It was a war of ignorance, of greed, and of oppression. A war that was about much more than when borders fell or who traded with who, but the very ideal of individualism itself. We fought for countless reasons, one of which being the countless destruction of all forms of art or self-expression. And as you are all aware, that is something many could not stand for. As a result, those who opposed this tyranny began naming their children after one of the core aspects of art itself, color. It was their way to demonstrate that they refused to tolerate this oppression, but neither was the generations to come, and it was a trend that was held to this very day. We encourage individuals' expressionisms and unity through diversity. And as I have said, today we stand together, united, but this bond cannot exist without effort, which is why today, while the rest of the world celebrates peace, huntsmen and huntresses will work to uphold it. As first-year students, you will be tasked with shadowing a professional huntsman and huntress on a mission. Some of you may be taken out of the kingdom for several days. Others will work the walls for the rest of the week. But no matter which path you choose, remember to be safe, remember your training, and remember to do your very best, Osmond said, before stepping away as the students all began to file out of the amphitheater. This is perfect. All we have to do is shadow a huntsman working in the southeast, Ruby said. Yeah, we'll follow him by day and give him the slip by night, Ruby said. Let's check, search, and destroy, Weiss stated as Team Ruby approached a hologram screen. Hey, here we go. Quadrant 5 needs Grim cleared out, Ruby stated. Well, it's in the southeast, Blake stated. Sounds perfect, Yang stated. Wonderful, Weiss said. Ruby selected it and typed in her team name. However, the screen said that first years are not allowed to take this mission. Any other ideas? Blake asked. We mail ourselves there, Ruby said. Well, that's one option, Osmond said, suddenly appearing. Unfortunately, we determined that the concentration of Grim was too extreme for first-year students. It seems that particular region is popular. In fact, I have the sneaking suspicion that you four will make your way there no matter which job you choose. Whatever makes you say that? Ruby asked as Weiss, Blake, and Yang glared at her as she nervously rubbed her head. I'm still curious how you found yourself at the docks last semester. I'm interested to learn how you really know about a hideout in the southeast, and I certainly wonder why witnesses report seeing robots, rose petals, orange, and steam in a dance club some time ago. Osmond stated, well, Ruby said, I doubt I'll ever find the exact answers we're looking for. So, how about this? Instead of waiting for you all to break the rules, why don't we just bend them? Osmond asked, selecting some things on his scroll, causing the hologram screen to make a noise. We won't let you down. Thank you, Professor, Ruby stated. Do not thank me for this. Just because I've made it so that your team can take this mission doesn't mean that you'll be the only team that will be with you. Teamwork and persistence have carried you far, but you must understand the things that await you beyond the protection of the kingdom will not care. Stay close to your huntsman at all times and do exactly as he says. He will be leading you on this mission, and he can have you sent back to Beacon if he finds your skills to be unsatisfactory. Good luck, Osmond said. Outside the amphitheater, That wasn't exactly uplifting, Yang said. Team Ruby having left the amphitheater and were making their way to the airship that would take them to Quadrant 5. But it's the truth, Blake stated. I know it's going to be tough, but we can do it, Ruby said. But who is this other team that will be going with us? Weiss questioned. Who else do you think? The familiar voice of Roshi called out. The four girls turned around to see Han, Roshi, and Fu making their way towards them. Whoever that woman was who kidnapped our leader was probably in leagues with the White Fang, or worse, the Akatsuki, Han stated. And don't expect us just to sit on the sidelines idly when Naruto's in trouble, Fu said. Hey, Team Coffee is back, a random student called out as he ran past the two teams. Beacon students gathered around to witness the return of Team Coffee. Blake went up to Velvet. Velvet, are you okay? Blake asked. I'm fine. I'm hired Yatsuhashi to look out for me, Velvet said. Your mission was supposed to end a week ago. What happened? Weiss asked. Nothing happened. There was just so many, Velvet said, looking up and noticing Team Ruby's worried expression. But don't worry, you first years are just shadowing huntsmen, so you should be fine, right? Yang said. I should go. Be safe, okay, Velvet said, waving goodbye before she left. We can do this. We've never backed down before, and we're not going to start now, Ruby said optimistically. Right, Fu said. Besides, it won't only be us out there. We'll be fighting alongside a genuine huntsman, Ruby said with a grin. Yeah, Yang exclaimed, matching Roshi's grin with her own. 5 minutes later, the 3 members of Team Archfiend and the 4 members of Team Ruby stood there with various stunned expressions, having just discovered who they would be shadowing. Both Yang and Ruby had a look of surprise on their face. Blake had a sweat drop on her forehead. Weiss's eyes were widened to comical proportions. Fu had a comical look of defeat on her face. Han was staring dumbfounded, and Roshi was currently trying to fuse his face to the palm of his hand. Remind me to never open my mouth ever again, Roshi said. Why, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Who's ready to fight for their lives? The Oobleck asked. A side story began. Cinderella story. Part 1. A snake in the grass. Somewhere in the land of rice, 15 years ago, 2 men walked through the small village. The first was a tall man with a pale near white complexion. He had long black hair, yellow slitted eyes, much like that of a snake's, purple pigments around his eyes, 2 tomato-shaped earrings, and wore a light tan-colored shirt with a long-sleeved black shirt underneath, the tan shirt being tied by a purple belt. Next to him was a gray-haired man wearing glasses, a purple shirt, and black pants. Orochimaru-sama, why did we go to this village? The gray-haired man asked. Because, Kabuto, there's someone here that has caught my interests, the black-haired man, now identified as Orochimaru, said. But usually you just send one of the others to retrieve them, the gray-haired man, identified as Kabuto, stated. This one is special, Orochimaru stated. A child born with the Shakuton. The Shakuton? I thought that was only available in Suna, Kabuto said. It appears that was wrong, Orochimaru said. The duo continued walking through the village until they came across a small alleyway. Shall we? As the duo entered the alleyway, they noticed a small little girl with yellow-orange eyes and short black hair wearing rags. Who are you? The little girl screamed out in fright. We mean you no harm. We just want to talk, Orochimaru stated. No, all adults are liars and meanies and jerks, the little girl exclaimed. We just want to offer you a new home, away from all these mean adults, Orochimaru said. You really mean it? The little girl questioned. Yes, Orochimaru replied. Now would you be so kind as to tell us your name? It's Cinder. Cinderfall, the little girl said. End of chapter 23.